When it comes to podcast cover art, first impressions count. Let's say you've got a cracking podcast. You've got a great idea and you've lined up some great guests. And that's all that matters, isn't it? You'd be wrong. Having all of that is great, but if not much thought has gone into your podcast cover art, you'll struggle to draw in new listeners and stand out among the myriads of other podcasts in your category. Whether you've yet to launch your podcast or you're just reconsidering your podcast cover art, this tutorial is going to give you some great tips and pointers, and will help you to understand and appreciate the importance of great artwork. I'll also give you some free and paid options for creating awesome podcast cover art for yourself. In this video, I'll cover why good cover art matters to your podcast growth, podcast artwork specifications, 3 do's and 3 don'ts for creating quality podcast cover art, and 2 free and paid options for creating your own. And don't forget, you can find tons of detail, including real life examples, by checking out our full guide at captivate.fm/cover art. So why is it so important to create good podcast cover art? Number 1, you need it to get into the directories. There's no ifs and no buts here. Number 2, no matter what topic your podcast falls into, there's going to be hundreds of other podcasts competing in the same category. You want to make sure that yours stands out. And number 3, your artwork is the first thing any listener is going to see. It's also an important first indicator of tone, subject matter, and whether the listener is going to want to tune in. Number 4, when people are scrolling through podcasts wanting something new to listen to, they're often met with a sea of different colours, different shapes, and different fonts. The trick is to make yours different and to make yours stand out so that it catches the eyes of scrollers and makes them curious enough to click and listen. Now, according to Apple's specifications, artwork must adhere to the following specs. It's got to be a 1-to-1 ratio. That's a maximum of 3000 by 3000 pixels or a minimum of 1400 by 1400. It needs to be 72 dpi or dots per inch. It's got to be in either JPEG or PNG format. PNG is usually a higher resolution and therefore higher quality, but file size is super important here. And speaking of that, you want to keep the file under 500 kilobytes. And you want to make it RGB color, not CMYK. Another great piece of advice is to avoid using any kind of explicit language, images. That stuff can get you into deep trouble, not only with your listeners, but also with the directories. And don't worry, when you upload artwork to Captivate, we'll make sure that your artwork meets all the specifications and criteria and give you a heads up if it's too big or the file size is too large. So what are 3 things you should do when it comes to podcast cover art? Number 1, be clear about what your podcast is about. What is the main topic of your podcast or the main theme or subject? Jot these down and have a think about the ways in which you can incorporate these into your artwork. Number 2, when designing your cover art, always have your audience in mind. Who are you trying to attract with your podcast? Who is your podcast for? Think of your target audience and think about what kinds of artwork, what kinds of images and shapes they're going to be receptive to. Number 3, think about how flexible your cover art is. The likelihood is that your podcast artwork won't just be used within the directories. You'll be using it in other places, such as on social media, in your header footer of your podcast website, on your promotional material, flyers, websites, business cards. Is it adaptable? Can you take different parts of your artwork and apply them in different situations? Now, 3 don'ts when it comes to podcast cover art. Number 1, don't be afraid of simplicity. Instead, embrace it. Less is definitely more here. Remember, your artwork is going to likely be seen on people's phone screens at really tiny sizes. So you want to make sure that your artwork stands out and is legible even at the smallest sizes. If you end up with podcast artwork that's overcomplicated or busy, it's likely to put a lot of listeners off and cause confusion, as well as being a legibility nightmare. Number 2, don't shy away from color. One way that you can stand out from other podcasts is by injecting tons of color into your cover art. The trick is to use bright and inviting colors, but still picking shades that complement one another and fit with your brand too. Number 3, don't use fonts or images without permission. Not all fonts and images are royalty free or free to use, and using either without permission can get you into a little bit of trouble. It's really important to pay attention and use free fonts. Google Fonts, Adobe Typekit or Canva are really good for this, or purchase font license and stock images whenever you need them. That means that you can use either your image or your typeface wherever you want because you've got the license. We've talked about the do's and the don'ts of creating podcast cover art, but how can you actually do it? What kind of software can you use? There are many design tools and routes you can use to create your own artwork. If you're not a seasoned designer, here are some ways to produce great quality podcast cover art yourself without breaking the bank. So you've probably heard about it before, but Canva is a really wonderful tool for podcasters looking to create free design on their own. It's a huge platform that allows you to create a range of different visual content, including cover art, but also email templates, flyers, social media posts, the lot. What I especially love about the tool is the huge bank of templates, stock images, fonts and illustrations all available at your fingertips. It's perfect for beginners and has enough flexibility and functionality to satisfy pros too. Remember, you can always change your podcast cover art as time goes on, so don't psych yourself out thinking that you've got to create a masterpiece first time round. And if you want feedback, I always recommend creating a few variations and heading to a Facebook group for podcasters, such as the Rebel Based Media Facebook group. I'll put the link here so you can get some great feedback from actual podcasters on what looks best. If you have the budget to get a logo or artwork created professionally, I would definitely recommend going down this route. It would definitely be worth it in the long run. Services like 99 Designs offer 4 fixed packages to suit any budget and project. The difference between the cheapest and the most expensive package is the amount of design concepts you'll receive, access to their top level designers, and better support such as a dedicated account manager. You can commission pretty much anything on 99 Designs, from entire design systems, that means including your logo, your artwork, colours, font faces, the lot, which would be great if you're thinking of podcasting for business, or you can focus on just the cover art itself. With this option, you're guaranteed to get a professional, great quality result first time, and it will be fully bespoke to your podcast. So that's it. With your cover art design, you can now think about how you can apply that artwork to different things like your social media promotions, your podcast website, and players for optimum podcast visibility. Don't forget, you can find tons more detail on this topic, including more do's and don'ts and real life examples of great podcast cover art and why it works, by checking out our full guide at captivate.fm/cover art. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more tutorials like this one.